Baki Hanma is a young 13-year-old kid who is aware of nothing but fighting. We witness 100 mercenaries gathered at a place with the sole mission of breathing up Baki, who is looking to become stronger. The mercenaries are arranged by Baki's mother, Emi Akezawa, who is training Baki to become stronger than his father, Yuujiro Hanma. Baki approaches the area and jumps over the fence to start the action. Baki looks like a young little kid, but he proves his strength head-on by beating up the leader of the group straight away. The fight continues, and Baki continues to throw punches, beating up the mercenaries despite the number disadvantage, until the police disturbs the fight. The manager sent by Baki's mother reports back that Baki managed to defeat 37 men out of the 100. Baki heads back to his place, and while walking back, we clearly see that Baki is not much liked by the town. Baki shows the desire to get much stronger and visits the laboratory set up by his mother to train him. He breaks equipment at the lab after realizing that this alone won't help him achieve his goals and runs out. He comes across a famous pro boxer named Yuri Tchaikovsky, where he witnesses the established Prodigy boxer show just how good he actually is during a spar. Baki makes a statement by smacking a punching bag, clearly delivering the message of a spar to Yuri himself. Baki's message goes across to the welterweight champion, and despite the warnings of the other fighters at the gym, Baki puts his gloves on to fight the champion in the ring. Baki starts going at it, but soon realizes that the champ is not in the mood of taking things easy, as he is going all out despite the fact that Baki is just a kid. Baki's mom had to assign Baki's managers to look for a much stronger opponent for Baki to fight. The guys reach a compound where a pro boxer was arranged to take on the infamous 15-year-old fighter named Kaoru Hanayama. Kaoru is a huge guy and is famous to be so strong that no one else in town can defeat him. Kaoru asserts his dominance on the boxer really easily when he defeats him, shattering his arm. Back at the gym, Baki gives Yuri a lot of trouble while the two square up, but just when Yuri seemed to be backed up by Baki, he reminisced about his training in the wild and knocked Baki out with a beautiful combo. Emi is informed about Kaoru and decides to sign him up for a fight with Baki. Kaoru initially declines the offer as he has no interest in fighting some 13-year-old, but agrees to the battle after he hears that Baki is the shadow of Yuujiro Hanma. Baki wakes up at the gym and leaves after shedding tears at his loss. Back home, the manager is waiting for him and is surprised when Emi arrives to meet Baki. Baki tells Emi about his decision to train his own way, and Emi leaves after giving Baki a kiss. Baki packs his stuff planning to train his own way in the mountains, and Yuri plans to get ready for his next fight. Baki leaves for the mountains and finally reaches his destined lodge up there. He meets Ando, who was Yuujiro's acquaintance, and decides to train with him. Ando helps him with some things and asks for a month to make him strong, but Baki decides to camp at the cave a little further by himself, to train despite being aware of the dangers of the Yasha ape. Baki continues his training and sometime later gets jumped by the Yasha ape. Baki is not able to deal with the ape himself, but Ando arrives to his help on time and ends up getting seriously injured before the ape flees back. Ando is sent to the paramedics at a hospital, and Baki decides to eat and train more so he can become strong enough in order to take the ape down himself. Yuri's match set up, but the match had ended before it even began, where Yuri easily bopped and weaved every single punch and later knocked his opponent out easily. Emi was aware of Baki's training in the mountain, and later lets her manager know that Baki can go a lot further with the release of endorphins than the capacity of the human body. Baki's training continues, and he later jumps off a cliff to overcome his fear. Emi stresses the need to cross the line to become a true grappler back at her mansion, after Baki had mastered the release of endorphins in his brain. Baki, who had just jumped from a cliff, sees death right in the face and somehow manages to overcome the fear of it. Everything slows down for Baki, and he reaches the water below by carefully avoiding the rocks. Baki had developed confidence after conquering the element of fear, and looks forward to his rematch with the Yasha ape. Baki returns to the cave and confidently challenges the ape to a duel. The two go head to head, and even though Baki initially strikes the ape a lot, he gets pummeled by the ape as well. Ando returns to his place again via a helicopter, and runs to help Baki with a shotgun after realizing that he must be fighting the ape. Ando arrives to witness that Baki was wounded but was still alive. Baki yells at Ando to not interfere with the duel and continues the fight. He was about to lose, but suddenly an endorphin release gave him the power he needed, and he succeeded in taking one of the monster's eyes. The monster left the scene, and later Baki visited the ape to return his wife's skull that was taken away by Yuujiro as a way of apologizing. Mutual respect grew between Baki and the Yasha ape, and Baki returned after receiving a tooth as a symbol of respect from the ape. Kaoru is staring at Baki's place and goes away just before Baki arrives. The manager is waiting for Baki outside and takes him to Emi, who welcomes him nicely. The mother and son watch some details about Yuri, who had already won the middleweight championship and now was after the heavyweight one. Yuri had gained a lot of weight in 2 months, and Baki remarks how he finds Yuri a lot slower than he used to be. Baki's remarks surprised Emi, and she sent the manager to sign Yuri up for a match. Yuri refused the offer initially, and the manager further proceeded to have a talk with Kaoru for his match with Baki. Baki visits Yuri's gym and explains how he finds boxing to be incomplete as an individual fighting style. Baki solidifies his take after splitting one of the punching bags open to prove his point. Baki's take had gotten into Yuri's head, and just when he was about to fight for the championship, he got jumped by Kaoru and his men, challenging him to a fight. Yuri goes all out against him, but fails in causing any serious damage, whereas Kaoru uses his immense grip strength to make the vessels in Yuri's arms burst. Despite losing one arm, Yuri's fighting spirit keeps him going, and he ends up getting smoked by Kaoru, ending up not in the condition to compete anymore. Baki leaves Emi's place remarking that he is sleepy, but later rushes to Kaoru's place, challenging the 15-year-old demon to a fight after making his way through every single of his guards in the building. Baki makes a statement by delivering a clean high kick to the side of Kaoru's head, leaving him shocked from the impact. The guards of the building are stunned by this action, and Baki leaves the building, telling Kaoru about a rematch later on. Baki returns in a car driven by his manager, and reveals how his legs were shaking when he was in front of Kaoru. Kaoru's pride was shattered by Baki, and without being able to take the disrespect, he got mad outside, breaking a whole car into pieces. Baki visited and saved Yuri and his sister Nina when Yuri woke up from a nightmare, and the three had a nice laugh while having a chat about Kaoru. Kaoru later visited his mother, who was in a bad condition, and presented her favorite flower essence to her. Baki kept feeling anxious throughout the next day at school. He reached the mall where a party was going on and called Kaoru out to finally square up. The fight began, and even though Kaoru beat the crap out of Baki and threw him out the window, Baki climbed back up and even countered Kaoru's arm grip when he grabbed him. Baki kicked Kaoru back into the big screen, and he took his clothes off to reveal the monstrous tattoo on his back. The fight continues between the two, and a little backstory of the tattoo is explained during the fight. The tattoo on Kaoru's back is the tattoo of a fearless man coming along with 2 generations of the family. Baki and Kaoru keep going with the fierce fight, and Kaoru manages to get a grip on Baki's arm. He succeeds in damaging Baki's arm, but Baki escapes his grip and bandages his somehow still functioning arm. Baki manages to counter Kaoru's insane strength with his speed, but ends up getting his damaged arm caught by Kaoru again. Kaoru tries to squeeze his arm yet again, but somehow Baki's body reacts by itself and uses grappling techniques to throw the huge Kaoru around. Kaoru's size difference turns out to be way harder to counter than Baki initially had thought, and he gets slammed into the wall with a solid blow. The match seems to be concluded, but Baki shocks everyone by standing up after slamming his head into the ground. The fight continues, and this time Baki smartly aims for Kaoru's fingers one by one, easily breaking them with his whole fist. Things seem to be going Baki's way when he manages to deal with a feint from Kaoru, but gets pummeled with a big punch in the end. Kaoru ends up getting exhausted from all this fight, and just then, Baki miraculously stands up again, revealing that he had glass pieces in his mouth. Kaoru accepts Baki's victory, and we are hinted about the return of the strongest man alive, Yuujiro Hanma, as Emi eagerly awaits him. A hunter tells the tale of the fight he witnessed between Yuujiro and a huge polar bear, and how Yuujiro killed the bear with his bare hands, justifying his title of the demon or the ogre among men. Yuujiro arrives at the same building Baki was fighting in with a helicopter and jumps directly into the building from the helicopter using a rope. Yuujiro remarks how the fight between Baki and Kaoru was barely a joke, and a flashback shows the past of how Emi met Yuujiro and developed her feelings for the strong man after watching Yuujiro fight for the first time. Back to the present, Yuujiro takes on Kaoru and easily beats him up, breaking his left leg. He remarks that a kid is just a kid and backs his words up by easily bearing Kaoru's monstrous strength. Baki remembers memories from his childhood and tries to stop Yuujiro after getting angry, ending up getting put to sleep by him. Yuujiro ends the little fight with Kaoru by smacking the crap out of him after remarking that someone like him is only good for fighting third-rate losers. Yuujiro met Emi, who was waiting for him, and got angry at her for how weak she had raised Yuujiro Hanma's son to be, later looking forward to making Baki a warrior himself. Baki is having a conversation by a cup of tea with Emi when Emi laughs at Kaoru's strength and how even though Baki almost fought him to death, Yuujiro basically defeated him with a single strike. This makes Baki angry, and his feelings for Yuujiro get salty. Baki remarks that he had a nice bond with Kaoru along with Yuri and Yasha Ape, and how what he is looking for is to strengthen bonds that are completely opposite to what Yuujiro wants. This remark shocks Emi a little, and she gets up to give Baki a letter from Kaoru Hanayama, who wishes to see him. Baki visits the hospital and finds Kaoru in a bad state, and the two have a chat where Kaoru explains just how much stronger Yuujiro was compared to him. Baki continues his training in his quest to get stronger, while Yuujiro heads to the Yasha Ape Mountain and decides to easily dispose of the ape, taking his head back to Baki as a motivational gift. Emi drives off after watching Baki use an old Chinese training style, and just then Yuujiro arrives with the head of the ape, remarking that Baki must show him what he has learned in the past 13 years by fighting him a month from now. Baki is still sad about the death of the ape when Colonel Stridham approaches him at the bank of the river, assigning him to a fight with 5 dangerous mercenaries on a serious mission to make Baki stronger. Baki joins the battlefield in Hokkaido by jumping down from a plane and is immediately jumped by 5 men who are professionally trained to kill. Baki tries to fight back, but the group uses tear gas on him, easily capturing him. The initial plan was to kill Baki, but they let him live assuming that he is not alone and his partner will come to save him. Sturdom joins a dinner with a senior, and they talk about the battlefield Baki's in. The senior reveals that only 2 people are stronger than him, the ogre and Gaia. The senior panics after he realizes that Gaia is actually among those 5 and reveals that he is unbeatable even if Baki is the son of the ogre. Baki gets out of his restraints and starts defeating the group of mercenaries one by one. 2 of them reveal that Gaia is among them and is their leader. Baki proceeds to defeat the last 2 as well, and is taking them back to stick them inside the ground when the story takes a twist as the bald guy, Nomura, starts acting up. Nomura suddenly starts to nod his head like crazy and jumps out of the hole Baki planted him into, revealing himself to be Gaia. Back at the senior, he shows scars from the fighting against Gaia and calls him a man of war since he was even able to survive a nuclear attack. Gaia reveals himself to be a split personality and shows his incredible strength to Baki, tossing him around first and later throwing him to drown in the river. The mercenaries are convinced that Baki has lost, but suddenly Baki comes back up to fight after an endorphin release. The endorphin boost still seems to be not enough to take on Gaia, and Baki still gets beaten up. Gaia reveals the secret to his strength to be the control of adrenaline that he obtained from partaking in real-life battles. Gaia is shown to be in a near-death experience with few chances to survive when his body starts to change and he loses his hair to develop a supernatural split personality. Gaia proceeds to dominate Baki and later shows his techniques using leaves, water, and even vines, but in the end, Baki turns out to be tougher and he puts Gaia to sleep gently after remarking that he doesn't torture his body, unlike Gaia. Baki defeats Gaia and enjoys a meal with the mercenaries. Baki returns from the Hokkaido battlefield and meets the colonel, who is impressed that Baki managed to defeat Gaia. He tells Baki's adventure story to Yuujiro, but Yuujiro takes it lightly, remarking that an adventure is easy work for him. Yuujiro decides to show Baki how it's done and give an open challenge to the Prime Minister that he is coming to kill him. The forces arrive and Yuujiro gets on with the task. Yuujiro crushes through the forces alone like it is absolute nothing, and proceeds to push through all the crowd and finally reaches the Prime Minister. Yuujiro scares him to death and makes a statement to the whole world. The news reaches Emi and she just laughs it off, remarking that Yuujiro alone is enough to take on the whole country by himself. Emi looks forward to the father-son fight that is destined to happen soon and wishes for Baki to do something for Yuujiro just like she would. Baki visits a samurai to complete the last bit of his training and proceeds to challenge him to a duel after showing his absurd power at such a young age. Baki surprisingly manages to beat the samurai and with most preparations complete, looks forward to the fight. Yuujiro is hanging around with an old acquaintance when he decides to gauge his strength and catches an arrow before it leaves the bow, displaying his demonic speed despite his size. Emi meets up with Yuujiro the night before the fight and gets devastated after Yuujiro still refuses to love her. She takes her frustration out on Baki, and despite Baki's request, refuses to love him after hitting him repeatedly. Baki's biggest challenge looks him in the eye, as he wishes to prove himself as a fighter and make his mother love him.